Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. I hope you're all having a great day. This is part two of two videos. The first one was the same scene as this but painted in watercolour. So this is part two, an oil painting of the same scene. So if you haven't seen the watercolour one, I'll put a link in the description below so you can hop over there and check that one out. And this is the oil one. And if you've seen the first one, you'll notice it's not massively different. I don't think we've got a little bit more work going off in the foreground, but apart from that, I was amazed at how similar they both were. So let's just go straight into the painting. So this second one, it's still painted in Artrage, but I'm using oil brushes. And I'm pretty much using the default brushes here, but I do tweak around with the settings on them somewhat. You'll notice this is very different to the watercolor painting. If you haven't seen that one yet, I'll recommend you go and see that first, because I have put a link in the description below. But you'll see that I'm sort of going straight in with painting the scene, I guess, with local colour, but in big blocks, really. And then I start to refine those blocks, and I'm straight in with a thick gloss paintbrush. I wanted this to be a thick gloss painting or a thick brush painting, and it's pretty similar. That I'm working on that tree. I'm working on all the branches, and then I start putting foliage in and all of these nice bright colours that are sort of like a rim light around the tree and all the bushes and stuff. But what is very, very different to the watercolour painting, you notice I'm sticking with one layer. I'm not creating lots of layers for this. And the reason for this is I want the paint to all blend together, so when I put a colour on, it mixes with the existing colour on the canvas. And unless I am doing some sort of a glaze over the top of the painting, I don't need to be using different layers, so I'm going to paint it all on one layer. And I'm not using blending tools too much. I think I do use a palette knife a bit later on, but most of the blending is done with a paintbrush, and then just selecting a colour. As I start to blend the colours together, I'll select the colour that's been mixed on the canvas and then use that and sort of blend colours in like that. So there's two ways I'm selecting the colour, as always, off the colour wheel, never off the photograph, and off the painting by using the Alt key and clicking on the screen, or clicking the button on the stylus. I was thinking, no, I actually hold the Alt key and touch the stylus onto the screen, and then that allows me to pick the colour up off the screen. So I do that a lot. Once I've got the initial colours on, I select way more colours off the canvas than off the actual colour circle. But we're getting, at this point, the painting is very, very similar colour wise, and with the lights and shades and everything. I've stuck to the same kind of palette, I guess, and same layout. The tree's pretty much the same size and the bushes are in the same place. The only thing I have made a little bit different, there's this diagonal that leads you into the right of the painting, where you then can come back across to see to view the tree. I've made that more pronounced, that diagonal. But apart from that, the composition is pretty much the same as the watercolour. I suppose a lot of artists, traditional artists years ago, would do a watercolour as a preliminary painting to an oil painting. So I guess that's what I did here, really. And I just I've never done it before, but I just felt that once I'd done the watercolour, I thought this could totally work in oils as well as in watercolour. So I needed to try it out. I start off with a fairly thick brush, putting this foreground in, wondering how I am going to get the kind of spikiness of the grasses and hay or long grass, I guess. And I try different things, and then I decide that the Artrage smudge palette knife worked perfectly for it, and I used that to sort of smudge the paint out. And then I went in with some really thick strokes, and I upped the brush texture, pushed it right up. I think it's called the depth. I pumped that up to get that real thick paint in the foreground. Back working in the distance again, just fiddling that. I just love to work over all of the canvas, up in here, there and everywhere. And I found when I was doing my traditional painting, don't forget, if you're not checked that out yet, pop over to my traditional painting channel, Steve Elliott, a fistful of brushes, and see me reproduce some of my digital paintings in oils at the minute. I'm maybe doing some pastels and watercolors as well, but at the minute I'm just using oils. Don't forget to check that out. Shameless plug there. Back into the painting, I'm sort of refining those branches, adding a few more. I love the way the paint just scrapes through the existing paint on the canvas, and it merges together and you get new colours appearing. I think that's great. Just building up those layers, all on the same layer. Look, I haven't created any new layers at all for this painting. It's all done in this one layer. Painting negative shapes now really around that tree. Still fiddling around with it, just trying to get the shape exactly as I want. Took me quite a while to get there. And now you see, just very similar to the watercolour, I'm adding some really bright highlights of leaves where the light's just sort of catching them, or there's holes in the bushes and the light's shining through. Just trying to capture that. And I'm definitely going to go back into the foreground because that's not finished yet. So now I have loaded up my custom brushes because I wanted a thick paint, and much thicker than you can get with the default brushes, and very quickly abandoned the idea and just went back to the thick gloss brush again. You can see flicking some more grasses in, putting a few highlights, so just sort of so that I could then paint back into it with dark colour to get this sort of contrast of light against dark. Put in a little bit of bright colour in the foreground. And then what I noticed, that there were these tiny little purple flowers, pink flowers in the foreground, that I didn't see them in the watercolour at all. I thought I need to put them in, and I felt they added a lot more to the painting. So what do you think? Which is the better painting? What, the watercolour one or the oil painting one? When you've I'll leave the video up a few days, let you comment, and then I will put in the comments which one I prefer. Do I prefer the watercolour or do I prefer the oil painting? You'll have to wait and see. Keeping it very suspenseful. Is that a word? Suspenseful? I'm not so sure. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. Still fiddling with that tree look, wanting to... that's my PC keeps beeping. Sorry about that. So I'm just sort of refining it and putting in little bits of detail here and there just to add to... I don't know why. I don't know why I'm doing it. I've got a feeling I may have to go in and do something to the sky. Do you remember on the watercolour one? Yeah, there we go. I darkened up the sky on the left-hand side, but then blended it out on the right. And I'm doing that just by selecting the colours. I had to move the reference photo out of the way. It was irritating me. Just by creating a colour, painting that on, and then where the colours overlap, just select that colour and then blend them out a bit. And I'm using that hard out smudge brush again, just to blend it, to get it a little bit softer, to get the nice effect I want. Then I decided just to bring the grasses in the foreground up to go into the middle line bushes. And that is it. That is my cold morning in Kegworth, painted in oils. I hope you like this video. If you have, big thumbs up as always is much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I've got lots of videos like this and I'd love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.